Corey Feldman, David Lee Roth, Philip Guston, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Troll 2. There is a very fine line between genius and stupidity. During this video, keep your eye peeled for this symbol. This is a taxonomy that I developed between genius and stupidity, which will give some insight into the work that we're currently looking at.
I'm Corey Feldman. Welcome to my Indiegogo campaign, Elevator to Ascension. Welcome to Feldmansion Studios. This is where I've been locked away for the last, decade, but really for the last few years. So if you haven't seen or heard of me much, that's because I've been in here working on this decade-long album project.
Feldmansion Studios. Example number 1. Take a look at the absolute soulless perfection of this drawing. Feast your eyes on the full value range, the proper geometry of the face, the dynamic stress lines of the hair. Yet this ChatGPT drawing is about as compelling and it's about as interesting as a fucking root canal. Now here's a collection of other ChatGPT portraits of Corey that I produced with Dall-e/ChatGPT. This is a hilariously pointless form of portraiture. Now with the rise of AI, to capture a photographic likeness as an artist is the least interesting thing that you can do. These tell us absolutely nothing about Corey. They tell us nothing about fame. They tell us nothing about culture. They are ridiculously antiseptic in their perfection. Now, it would appear that AI strives for a relentless perfection. This example that I stumbled upon from last night is kind of mind-boggling. It's a new tool called Visual Electric, and it's simultaneously frightening and incredible in a way. Let's take a closer look at this. Now, I want you to pay particular attention to the fact that the fingers aren't fucked up and these models don't seem to exist in an uncanny valley. Let's take a look. I'm going to leave it at regular speed.
Cool. So, not bad. Obviously, I want to tweak some stuff, but from a contents and composition standpoint, it's pretty close. So those are pretty cool images that I've generated already. But let's take this prompt and cool.
Now think about the repercussions of the video that we just saw for commercial photography, for modeling, for set design. To some degree, it portends the end in a way. Well, the thing is that it seems that AI strives for a relentless kind of perfection. Now, human artists, not to be negative, not to be a doomer, but human artists will simply not be able to compete with this kind of hermetic perfection. The solution, to a degree, is to be dumber. It's to think in ways that AI cannot. There's a lot that we can learn, as an example, from Corey Feldman, from David Lee Roth, from Philip Guston, from Jean-Michel Basquiat, from Troll 2. The solution is to make art in ways that AI can't. Now, this brings us back to the idea of the very fine line between genius and stupidity. Now, maybe the answer lies in stupidity. So let's take a closer look. Narnar is an idea from French cinema, which is a fancy way of saying where something that's so bad becomes excellent. This is Troll 2. It's a famous example of Narnar. We can think of the dynamic that I'm referring to as a lemniscate, which is a technical term for the figure 8 symbol, the infinity symbol, where the bad is so bad, potentially so bad, that it loops over back around into that which is good. And that, as we can see from artificial intelligence, that there's a kind of perfection, there's a kind of goodness, which is actually quite terrible. We can think of almost any mall that we have been to, the kind of antiseptically sealed and perfect architecture of late capital mall systems. We can see this in Corey Feldman's development as a musician and songwriter. Here's Corey shredding. Now, we find the opposite of this, the flip side
And
of
we
this
stood up,
coin
thought
in
we were
David Lee
fooling
Roth's
the
development.
magistrate. You follow with
where
our
the good
long
actually
ponytails.
becomes the
Remember what I
bad.
used to look like, Joe? I used to look like Tarzan who read a few paperbacks. Come on.
Right.
I was you, Joe.
Look at you. Look at you and I.
Yes, this David Lee Roth. This is the same person. So what is the lesson for artists? Well, as I've discussed nearly infinitely, ad nauseum on this channel, we can think of art as a kind of test bed for ideas. So you may think that you're looking at a picture in a way, but every picture that you're looking at is actually a kind of test bed for ideas. It's an articulation of an ethos, of a cosmology, of an ideological system. So I'm not just interested in talking about ideas, but I'm interested in how they work actually in the studio. Now, as an example, here are a few rough sketches that I did. When I started to draw and to start to think about the ramifications of Corey Feldman, David Lee Roth, Philip Guston's development, Jean-Michel Basquiat, and Troll 2. After doing a quick, relatively realistic depiction of Corey, I started to explore more of how a portrait might capture more of the issues that are at play in celebrity and age. So let's watch for a second the process of exploring celebrity and age while we watch Corey perform live. I then transformed these drawings into screen prints and used transparent ink and spray to infuse slippage, the hand, and controlled mistakes and chaos into the work. We can see that here. Now the attempt here is clearly to make an imperfect object, to revel in the imperfections of the hand. Now the drawing was done initially digitally. So here are the two drawings transformed into prints with spray paint and transparent ink. The impetus for this came from seeing a TikTok reel that said I went to see Corey Feldman again last night. Now here's what I think is going on. Now initially I asked ChatGPT to draw Corey Feldman at age 50. And I cycled through a series of these portraits. But as you can see here, this shows us absolutely nothing. It reveals nothing about the nature of fame, the nature of Corey at this age. So in my version, I'm trying to look at how fame seems to split identity into the real and the grotesque, how a person can become familiar yet fundamentally alien. The bloodshot eye, to me, suggests pain and suffering behind the facade and the eerie tension between self and spectacle. And the bow tie represents a kind of chuggy fashion aesthetic that Corey seems to steep himself in. Now, I took time to record a cover of Corey's Go For It. So I'm overdubbing my version currently of Corey's Go For It, a song that I really love, over his Today Show. Get it, all she wanna do is twerk. Hit the club, go for it. In his performance, I believe, on the Today Show, we can see how compelling it can be when good collapses into the bad. So here we see a perfect example of nar. We can see that lemniscate again, the collapse. So as an artist in a world absolutely flooded or on the verge of being flooded with the soullessly perfect images of artificial intelligence, it's exponentially more interesting to get the bad to collapse into the good, to work creatively, and to work in ways that artificial intelligence simply can't manifest. Now, David Lee Roth is the flip side of this coin, as I mentioned. And as a kind of side note, ChatGPT would not let me render an image of David Lee Roth with a missing tooth. Now, I tried probably 15 times with multiple explicit prompts and instructions, yet notice his missing tooth in the next clip. And I want you to think about what else you notice in the next clip.
Foot. And we stood up, thought we were fooling the magistrate. You follow, with our long ponytails. Remember what I used to look like, Joe? I used to look like Tarzan who read a few paperbacks. Come on.
Right.
I was you, Joe.
Look at you.
So how does this become this? I am not dragging him for age. I'm not suggesting that a human being should look at 70 years old how they looked at 30 or 26. I'm not making fun of his physical appearance. I think that he's a handsome man and always has been. What I'm referring to is how he seems detached from a shared reality.
Remember what I used to look like, Joe?
People get old.
I used to look like Tarzan.
That's not what this is about.
Right.
As an aside, and in some ways what these portraits that I've produced are about, is that everyone needs a no man. Someone who says no to you, who tells you the truth, who keeps it real with you. This loops back to the idea that there is a very fine line between genius and stupidity. Artificial intelligence will be able to outperform humans. Thus, we have to approach our work from a different perspective. So maybe the answer lies in stupidity.